All right, so that's what we've got going on for today. We're talking about Blackboard Collaborate Ultra. So let's start off by going around the room. Tell us who you are and what you'd like to know, or one top piece of advice that you'd like to talk about regarding VB Collaborate Ultra or using video teleconferencing. And who would like to start? All right, Linda.
I know what it is, and I'm here on behalf of a colleague, want to learn more about it. So I'm kind of a sponge today, hearing what people think and what they're doing.
All right, so just getting some experience. What are people's experiences? Very good.
I'm Karen Skiva from the Division of Continuing Studies, and I also lead Teach Online. So for those of you who are developing fully online courses, Maria is also in the program, and we also have some past participants, Lynette here, and we use Blackboard Ultra a lot. So later on I can share our experiences on how we make it interactive. And so we work with faculty on how to teach online. So we show and share some ideas later on how we make it a very interactive, engaging experience. But I'd love to hear how other people are using it in their courses today.
Hi everyone, I'm Laura Schmidley. I'm from Learning Support Services over in LNS. The first thing that came to mind as you were talking, John, was the idea of making sure that your students or whoever is attending your Collaborate session that they're really prepared to participate. So I'd say that's my number one tip is having a really good set of instructions that help someone understand like technically what they need, but also what they should be prepared for in terms of what they'll be doing with Collaborate.
And I'm David McIntyre. I'm also with LSS, and I have a lot of experience with video conferencing. And Laura and I did a pilot, a very overwrought, overcomplicated pilot regarding how to like kind of blend Blackboard Collaborate and some traditional video production technologies. And the biggest thing on my list, the top one, is just headphones. Just use headphones, require headphones. It will eliminate a lot of the potential overload of echo and feedback and improve the overall technology experience.
I presume headphones with microphones.
Either way,
Oh,
like even if somebody just plugs in headphones and is using their live mic on their computer, that will be,
without the speaker feedback, it helps.
yes.
Very good.
And I prefer the microphone because otherwise you hear people eating their lunch or doing all sorts of things, or the kids playing in the background. So it is helpful to have the microphone.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm Jeff. I'm from the Department of French and Italian. I've used this Ultra, I guess that's what we're going to call now, mainly as office hours. So I'm interested in one of the online courses that we're developing to just see how this could be used more effectively as a replacement for discussion forum posts.
Good.
I'm Sarah Hagan from the College of Engineering. I think I remember going to one of these things and they were talking about how to have students collaborate on like group video projects by recording themselves in Ultra. Is there still an option for them to download the recording in there? Is that still there?
It depends on how you set up the session.
Oh, okay. I would like to know more about the
All right, we'll
details
talk
on
on
that.
that.
Well, I'm Min. I'm computer guy for animal sciences and very science. I'm here because he asked me to come along. So,
Good job, John. Everybody.
So I'm John Parrish. I'm professor in animal science, and I have taught a multi-institutional course in Zoom, and I would like to see how to do this in this product.
I'm Zangili with integrated biology. I haven't used it for real yet, so used it as a student in Karen's class once. So I'm here to kind of in general, getting more knowledge on what the users think about it, and what kind of problems they may face, and sort of big, broad things.
User students or user instructors?
Both.
Okay.
Kind of going along with.
Very good.
We skipped you in our
Tom?
rotation.
Oh, that's fun. Thanks. I'm Tom Brennan. I'm an instructor at the Nelson Institute and UW Housing, and I'm going to echo Jeff's sentiments on office hours and discussions, and specifically for a informal learning environment one where it's not a course, it's a learning community, and they live together, and we're looking to coordinate a lot of the programs and field trips and communications in a Canvas course, and wondering if there's any sort of useful use case for Ultra in that.
I really like that you added that phrase informal learning because with Web 3.0, it's always on, always plugged in, and video is in some ways natural for that, so interested to explore. James? And then
James McKay, I'm actually the administrator for Blackboard Ultra on our campus, which is much less time consuming than it sounds like. But I have taught using Ultra. I've been very involved in with Blackboard in general. So I've got a lot of thoughts and resources and things that I'm happy to share.
very good. Okay.
Cool. My name is Maria Widmer. I'm an instructional designer with the Merit Group serving the School of Education. My main interest is around how we can use web conference tools for collaborative kinds of learning. That's also maybe a resource I can share. Brought along, this book is great for thinking through different techniques of ways to foster collaboration, and then also it provides examples of how to do this either in a synchronous or asynchronous space online. One tip that someone told me once, which has served me well with webinars, is to embrace the awkward. There are pauses where you may not be used to having them, so I try to keep that in mind whenever I do the thing.
But music helps. Sometimes we play music in the background when they're collaborating, and that seems to break the tension.
I'm Colleen Valdez. I'm an instructional designer for the Division of Continuing Studies. And as someone mentioned earlier, I'm here to just kind of be a sponge and learn all I can about collaborating.
My name is Taylor Johnston. I work for WIDA within the WCER. And we actually use Blackboard or Ultra Conference already in our professional learning offerings. So just here to learn what I can, see what more functions that we're maybe not using that we should.
Okay, I want to pose a question out of that. That was, and this is a question for James, I guess. Can we separate Ultra Conference from the NetID Canvas enrollment? I think the answer is yes.
Yes, so there's two ways to access Ultra. It is either through a Canvas course or through the MyUW portal.
All right.
And there are pros and cons to using either way, depending on your use case.
All right, so I'm gonna put that as my UW portal. And I think that that might tie into John Purvish's question about how do we use this with other campuses and across the US with people who don't have net IDs.
Well, so the really good news is it doesn't matter how you access it. For setting up purposes is the only reason why you need to have a net ID. So once you have a session set up, anybody in the world can join it. Yeah. There is literally no barrier to joining an Ultra session.
Okay.
Yeah, that was sort of the same way Zoom was. One person had to have the instance of Zoom installed and everybody else would just.
Hop on.
Yep.
Very good, so it's easy. And I think that, so I'm John Martin, I'm doing academic technology. I have never taught with Blackboard Collaborate Ultra or Ultra Conference as it used to be known. I've tried it in these labs before and yeah, it's easy. It's not surprising. I don't know if I have developed, I know that I have not developed any best practices yet because my exposure is very limited. So I'm very happy to have you all here that have believes in it, so that I can be a sponge as well. So those of you who I've specifically invited to talk, share your experiences, are there any things on this list that you'd like to address? That you're like, oh yeah, this is an easy one, this is a hard one, let's spend all day on it.
All right, interactivity one, Karen again.
Yeah.
Because well, the way we use it is we have 39 faculty and teach online, and they can't all come face to face. We try, so we have 2 face-to-face, and then we offer a webinar session. And then for some sessions, we simply just offer via webinar so they can get the experience. So the key is we want to be able to have that interaction that we have in the face-to-face also in a webinar. And that can be difficult, but Blackboard Ultra is pretty good because you can have a lot of instant polling. You can actually just have a blank PowerPoint right on the PowerPoint, like it's a whiteboard, right? They have groups that you can divide people into, and we do a lot of collaboration using Google Docs. So I have one up here that I can share with people. How exciting is it to talk about objectives? Well, ours was extremely exciting session, believe it or not, because we talked about objectives, and then we pulled up a document where they could anonymously post their objective and get feedback from their peers live while we played music, and it went extremely well. And we just gave them a couple questions to answer, and then gave them a place where they could give comments. So you can also combine Blackboard Ultra with other tools such as Google Docs and all of that, and make it very interactive session. One tip for that, if you are recording the session, I've learned this, you want to share your desktop, so when people are watching the recording, they don't just see blink while all that collaboration is going on. If you share your desktop, you can pull up the document, and when the recording pops up, you can actually see all the collaboration that's taking place. So I think, and we've done a pretty good job of making these interactive and not talking type activities. So happy to answer questions about that, but I would say you can make it very interactive, but you have to make sure you deal with all the technical issues as much as possible, because that can totally destroy a webinar. So try to do some low-key webinars in the very beginning, and then once people get going, then it becomes pretty easy after they've done it.
So let's lead directly into that idea of instructor versus student prep. Around how many times would you say you need to do this before you're like, okay, I can do this, this is a comfortable situation for me as an instructor? And then related to that, how long does it take for the students to catch on?
I would say once you get the right equipment and and you sign in using Google Chrome, if you follow the directions, not long. If you don't follow the directions, it's going to take a very long time. So you have to I send out directions 1, 2, 3, 4, how to do this. I give them a room to try it out. Yeah, and we're available online a half hour prior to try to troubleshoot any issues. But if they're having a computer and tech issue, because we want to try to resolve that beforehand. But most people get on right away and don't have an issue. It's those who don't have the headset with the microphone and set up with Google Chrome prior to the event that have the issue. But I would say 85% are okay. It's that 15% that usually sign on that very second without trying it out beforehand that have the issues.
So why do you have to use Google Chrome?
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that as well.
It has some interactive features. Google Chrome works really well with Blackboard Ultra. Maybe you can talk to that.
They built it for Google.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they did. And all the features and all of that work extremely well with that.
Yeah, so if you use Google Chrome, things like sharing your screen are native to the interface. If you use something like Firefox, then the very first time you try and share your screen, you have to do a little plug-in. So it's not like other browsers are just like, oh, this is a pain. It's just it's built for Google Chrome, so it's going to perform best.
But I found out the hard way. They made some kind of update. Make sure that you, if you're going to share your desktop and all of that, do that beforehand, because now you have to download something I didn't know about before, and shut down your computer and shut it up. So my key thing as an instructor, try out all the technologies and tools that you're going to try, including sharing your desktop and all of that before you go live, so you don't have what I did, and I had to restart my computer in a webinar because I didn't know about that. So I got something new. So just if you try out all the tools in advance, you'll be fine. But if you try to just go on and do it without trying it first, you're inviting problems.
So do you have is that also true for the students? One, do they need to use Chrome as well? And two, do you have like a list of, let's do this and this and this,
Yeah, it works with Firefox and others too, but Chrome was recommended, and I give them a list. They just were having a webinar this afternoon at 3. Maria's leading that too. And I have a tip, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's a link to things to check, go in, double check your mic. Yes, I give them, and I'd be happy to share that with you.
that'd be great.
I've
And
come
if
up
you
with
could
this
actually
list
put it
after,
on a link at the bottom of the activity sheet,
Yeah.
that'd be awesome.
good, it only took us 5 years, but I think we finally have a good little 1, 2, 3, 4 checklist of, these are the things that could go wrong. Please check this out beforehand.
Awesome.
Be
And
happy
we
to
also, just so you know, there is, and I can add these too, but Blackboard itself has a list of best practices in their
And I clicked-
documentation. And then I believe it was EPD, Engineering Professional Development, because they rely on Ultra or Blackboard a lot. They put together, it's aimed at presenters, but a lot of it is generally applicable to anybody in the session.
Okay,
We actually have it in a KB doc, so I'm happy to show you that.
Yeah,
Great.
that too. Yeah, they have students do presentations using that, and they're required to use live ultra technology like that in their courses. So I'll be happy to share mine, but yes, definitely theirs is good too.
fantastic. John,
Can we back up a second? Can you show me what it looks like up here?
So what?
A Blackboard.
can you,
Ultra.
would you be willing to show your Teach Online one? You can
Yeah,
just
I
plug
can
it in
show
or-
that.
I just want to see what
Bring
it
it up
looks
here.
like.
Yeah, I can
Okay.
that's all.
You want
And
to-
then I also need to know, where do you find all this information about how to use it?
So the KB is a good place to start.
What is KB?
So the KB is the knowledge base, so it's kb.wisc.edu. This is actually where I would
Here's
go
my hand.
Okay,
for
okay,
any
so that one, yeah.
technology related questions
Yeah,
for our
that's-
campus. And if you search Collaborate Master or Ultra Master, so there is Blackboard Collaborate Ultra and there's Blackboard Collaborate Original.
Yes.
They're different products, though they're the same. They're both web conferencing. Original requires you have to do a download. It runs on Java. It's old. We don't necessarily recommend it. Ultra is browser based, and that's what this is about. So just make sure when you're looking at the documentation that you aren't confusing original with Ultra.
Okay.
Keep talking while I'm figuring this out.
All right, this is great. Again, it's a good question, and the answer for me is almost always, no, I don't have a good example of that because I just teach 9 people right now in class. So I love when people are willing to share who have more experience and examples. So for the students,
I was just gonna add one quick thing while Karen pulls it up.
yeah,
One thing we were trying to do was improve like the resolution or just the viewing experience for students who were doing a traditional video conference, because like, someone's in front of them and, they couldn't see clearly the presentation. And Ultra Conference is a great feature where you can upload your PowerPoint slides and they're really pristine. Like it looks really, really nice, and it's much better than trying to share your live desktop in that case. So that's just a little tip.
I don't think they're compatible with them. It's not compatible.
I think there's a mic.
Whatever. That's always the fun thing.
Oh, at least they might actually just be fine.
That's right.
saw things flash.
Right, so you can window and see. And you want to duplicate it.
Very still awkward.
I want to see my girl.
There for a moment.
There we go. Here's the collaboration document I was talking about, where we were collaborating, why we were in the Blackboard Ultra session. So we just had a couple of quick questions, share your learning objectives, and was it clear? And they would put their X's or O's, and then they would give feedback on that. And we did that live.
And although it's not necessarily Blackboard Collaborate related,
No.
for your sharing here, you have it set up for anyone with the link, correct?
Right, anyone with the link.
So not just within UW or within that.
Right. So when you go into a Blackboard Ultra session,
We lost the video.
Oh, I don't know how that happened.
I think I saw you move your laptop.
It may have
Wiggle bit.
There we go. Sorry about that. So this is our course, for example, and students have a choice of going in two different ways. One is you can use a guest link, so I always share a guest link or they can go into Blackboard Ultra right through here. And then they would just click over here, and you could have different rooms set up. It takes a little bit here for me to get on, but I found it was easier just to make the course room. So instead of having a whole bunch of rooms, I found it easier just go to the same room. It's open all the time, and they can go in there. And I have a practice room. One time I tried to set up a room for each session, and that was a disaster. So I've learned from all the things. It's just best to have the same course room, and the link is always corrupt.
Karen, why was it a disaster?
Because people would always go to the wrong link. So they would always pick the wrong link. So I would have a link to all the different sessions. I would have one, oh, go this week for this week, and this one for that one. And they would always end up going to the wrong link. They would use a past email or something else. So now if I make the link the same, and I also post it in the course, so it's very obvious. And then it's easier for me. I don't get mixed up either with links. It's always the same link. So I have simplicity, simplicity, simplicity. The fewer directions that you can provide, the fewer links that you can provide, the better off you have. And the
Are
nice
there
thing
any
is-
downsides to that? Like, do you ever lose content or?
No, because I record the webinar and I do that too. And with Blackboard Ultra, it's a new session each time anyway. So if somebody went in there, it would just be a brand new session. The only thing is you have to delete your old PowerPoints because you could upload your PowerPoints in there. I can show you, I probably still have one up there. You have to delete the old one, but that's okay because we'll only share it if you want to. I'll show you an example.
Why do you have a dial-in number?
That's what I was going to talk about too.
Okay.
So for students or people who can't really use their computer, they can just do this anonymous dial-in. But correct me if I'm wrong, that's individual for each person, right? That dial-in number, yeah. I think it's individual for each person, that dial-in number when you pull
Sorry,
in.
one more time.
Is that dial number individual for each person?
Yes,
Right.
so, and this is one of the, in the old original, it was a generic dial-in number that anybody could call on the phone. And then with Ultra, they changed it so it's individual. It's actually kind of a pain because you have to log into the session a lot of times to get the number. So it is no longer generic.
Right.
So yeah, it was kind of counterproductive.
But
I believe they're working on fixing it so that they will have a generic number like the original.
Right, I made that mistake too. I made all the mistakes you could possibly make. Sent out that one, and then once you call in with that one, it's busy because only one person can use that.
So you have this as a course room, so that is essentially, these rooms you're talking about, that's essentially the place where all this activity is going to occur within.
Right, but you can also do other rooms too. I'll show you in a minute here. So this is the main course room that we're going to go into right now, where everybody would come in. But there's also, you can divide them into other course rooms as well. But I can't do that. It's just-
Breakout rooms. And I think maybe to answer your question, you can create as many sessions as you want. So on the administrative screen that she was just on, each course in Canvas has by default a course room created just because, but you can make additional sessions. So if you want to make like, this is specifically for this TA's office hours, or I would want to make different group rooms so different groups can meet in different places, you can do that. Once you are within a session, what she's about to show you is how you can have multiple rooms in the same session.
So they give you a lot of good tutorials that they didn't have in the very beginning. So they checked, that you saw it was checking my microphone, it was checking my video, love it. In the very beginning, it didn't have that. So I really love that feature now. So they've made a lot of improvements to this over time, which I'm very thankful for. So here I am, and one of the negative things though, I have to always upload my picture because it's always nice to have your profile picture. So when you're not on the webcam, but for some odd reason, you have to do that every single time. It used to save that for you, but it is worth doing. It takes 2 seconds to upload your photo in there, and that way when they don't see a video of you, they see a picture of you.
Can I interject right here? Last night I went to a teaching academy thing on inclusive teaching and learning. And one of the big things that they said that's really helps with student success is if they feel like they belong. So the social belonging is a huge element. And whenever you can have, instead of this, have names and faces associated, that helps people build cohesiveness in the community, and they know that they're talking to somebody instead of a thing.
Right.
So
And
that
as
is
much
a big help, that is a big plus.
Right, and as much as I hate showing my picture on the webinar, I do pop it up when I'm talking for a bit, just say, hey, hello, how you doing? Have everybody check that out, because I did have feedback from past participants that said, well, nobody shared their video, I didn't feel like I was really there with other people. But you have to be careful, because if everybody shares their video, it can slow things down. So we turn them on and off, to build that community. But if you're in a poor internet situation, you may not want to share your video, but I highly recommend that they share their videos when they're in the group discussion areas and the group breakout rooms, and when you're here, at least in the very beginning, so they know that you're a real person. And this is where you would turn on your audio or off, and you have control as the moderator to turn off everyone, which is a really good feature, because if you hear that person in the back and the children screaming or whatever, or screeching in the background, whatever it is, you can, chewing, you can turn it off. So it's really nice. And this is where they can raise their hand. Now, this isn't very obvious, but you have a lot of features here in this panel. And you can decide if you want to chat to everyone or just the moderator, so it's only me. So for you to see who's in the chat room, you can see, Maria was there, you can join me now.
And what I remember, Karen, from the Teach Online session, was that you would do the coaching to your students. Notice in the lower right-hand corner, there's the raise your hand thing. So you would remind them as part of that instructions for the students, not just beforehand, but also in situ, to do these.
So right before we would use a tool, first of all, in the very beginning, we explained all the tools. We're now on our 5th session, so we don't have to do that anymore. But now if we use a new tool like the whiteboard, or if we use the sharing tool, right before that, we'll share how to do that. So they know, right? So just in time training, it doesn't take very long because it's very simple to use. And there's a lot of cool features here. One is sharing content. So this is where you have polling, timer, that's a new one. Breakout rooms. So here, if you want to share a file, here's the one that we shared, our last one. And here's, and here you can see that we were the presenters for last time around. And we always say if you need help, the chat window. So my recommendation as an instructor is to have somebody there to help you, a TA, anybody, because you can't, I did that the first one, be the presenter and troubleshoot at the same time. It's very difficult. And usually people are emailing you. So they're emailing you and then you're trying to do this. So I highly recommend that you have somebody, anybody there to help you with those technical issues. Otherwise, you'll probably be trying to do that while you're presenting, and that's no fun. So,
just to check, are we hearing from Lane back there?
No,
No,
sorry.
okay.
I said hello, I don't think
All
I'm
right.
there today.
So you did this PowerPoint. So were you talking while the PowerPoint was being presented to all these people?
yes, we were talking, but we did a lot of collaboration things as well. So for example, we did here I had this question up here and we did a poll. And so we got people talking. So we have questions that we have people talk about. They can either chat or talk. But here, for example, we wanted them to find out, we have a raise hand or type in the chat window. Or we have another one where we might, sorry to do this to you. Close your eyes for a second. But we might have a poll later on that we ask a question in the PowerPoint. We could share a question in the PowerPoint, and then you can say 3 choices, start. So in your PowerPoint, you can say, have you done this, this, or this? And you'll have it 1, 2, 3. And then people can take the poll right on the spot.
So in many ways, that's like student response system.
Yeah, right. So I couldn't find the PowerPoints there, but I usually have PowerPoint that asks a couple questions, and then you saw how quick it was for me to put up that poll. It took me 2 seconds I'm going to have, polling. I'm going to have, how many choices am I going to have? I'm going to have 5 choices, start, and then on my PowerPoint, I don't happen to have that up. I would have my responses, 1, 2, 3, and then they would just, so my answer would be, do this, this, or that, and they would pick that, and you would be able to see real time the poll responses. So you saw how quick it was for me to pull that up.
And Karen, I saw that you had some slides that had links on them. Are those links live for the students who are watching?
No, PowerPoint, when you pull up a PowerPoint into here, it turns it into an image.
Okay.
So don't think that when your PowerPoint is on here that you can click on those links and they'll work. Instead, I pull them up in, I used to do sharing applications, but I share my computer now because that records. So anything here, you can easily record on here, start recording. report issue. So because I want everything recorded so that people who view this after, it's not as exciting, obviously, but I want them to see everything that we do, including the Google Docs, and if I do share any links. So I share my desktop. So another tip, clean your desktop. Don't look at mine today. So I don't see all that stuff. Turn off your email, because all those things pop up. So you'll get pop-up, I'll get to, all these odd things popping up. So have your computer totally cleared off, if you possibly can. Sometimes I have my laptop on the side and I have my computer, and I sign in my laptop as a guest. So I can see what's happening over on this other side. So if there's something, you don't have to do that, but sometimes I like to see what's going on when I'm sharing a screen, that it is actually doing what I want it to do. So I might have my computer here and my laptop signed in as a guest. And they have this new timer. I haven't tried it yet. And we want to talk about that.
The timer it's usually something that you kind of use with breakout rooms where you say, all right, I'm going to send you in, you get 5 minutes to do this task, and then you set the timer and everybody can see how much time they have left.
Can you click on that real quick?
It's kind of bring it right back together.
It looks like it's a, is it a number timer? This, oh, it is, okay. I was hoping that it was one of those timers that actually shows you how much.
Oh, see, there's my example. Don't have your email up. It'll show. I'm gonna get there. But yeah, it's really nice. And I do a lot of the stuff in the PowerPoints, and so I can, I have an example here, but get everything all set up so it's organized in the PowerPoint, including my poll questions. And if there's a blank one that they would collaborate on, I don't have one in here, but the cool thing is that people can just, if I had a blank one up here, you just hit the T tool and they can type away, and people love to do that. You can draw, you can have them draw on it. So you can have them draw, type things in. So I usually set up a PowerPoint that has a question on top. Let's brainstorm on this, and then they'll type in the responses. The only negative is, all right, I want to do this. Yay, that was really interesting. And I come back to that slide, it wipes it up. So you can't go backwards if they're doing a collaboration on here. The second you go to the next slide, it wipes it out.
So take screenshots before you leave that screen, right?
Yeah. Take a
Can I ask
screenshot or go to
another question before you go on?
Sure.
So is this designed to be played on a student's individual laptop or their individual computer? Or could you have a large screen monitor in a classroom and do it as a classroom in front of that? Or is there will it bog down if we have 30 computers accessing this at the exact same instant? Or would it be better to have 5 computers accessing it?
Like 100.
Yeah.
I teach online, so they all do it into, so I'll answer from my perspective, and others can feel free to add in. If they're all doing the same computer doing this, you can't have somebody, if you're going to use a microphone and headset, you can't have someone else next to each other. I just moved from an office to a cubicle, and one of my colleagues who's a facilitator, he's in this cubicle, I'm in this cubicle. If we both have our sound on at the same time, screech, you'll hear the screeching. So we have to make sure that we don't have it on. And I don't know how far you have to be away, but apparently a cubicle space is not big enough. So
Yeah, so I've got the sound thing. So
yeah,
my question is more that will this bog down?
will it bog down? I don't know if
so
it'll bog down.
Right now they guarantee up to 250 in a session with no performance issues.
Okay.
I think it's more a matter of the internet.
So
at
does
your
this
house.
show as a full screen resolution or only like this?
I think you have a choice, and don't you have a choice?
You can
in here?
individual participants can choose to zoom in, zoom out. Yeah, so that's the closest you get to full screen.
So you have a choice of zooming in, and because if that's too small a type for you.
No, I'm wondering about all the other stuff you have on the screen, getting rid of everything else.
Tabs,
Like the stuff on the navigation stuff.
So that, yeah.
Yeah.
They have it built so because they want you to be able to access whatever you need. So they make it so things are collapsible, but it doesn't go to full screen like if you're watching a video, YouTube video. Click the screen.
So you can click on your Canvas tab to get course materials.
Okay, so then the next question is, what is the resolution on this PowerPoint? So you said it's converted it to an image.
Mhm.
An image at what size? 1080p, 720p?
That I'm not sure of.
No one said it was ever fuzzy, but.
I have something to add here because there are platforms that are known for very good resolution. Zoom is one of them. Google Meet is another. what we noticed is that the video that we were pumping into Blackboard was like the best that we could possibly produce, you know, high definition
Yeah.
cameras. And the video that people saw was like, it was okay. It wasn't as good as some of the
Well,
class
that's all,
leaders.
yeah, that's all I'm asking, since I've never used it. I've only used one other platform. I
Yeah.
have like no idea what this would be
I
like.
think, yeah, I mean, people love Zoom because it's of its ease of use and it looks really good. And this has a feature set that I don't think Zoom can compare to at all.
Yeah,
Because
no,
it
it
has
doesn't
the
have anything like
captioning,
this,
it
right.
has the file upload, it has the poll, it has all these classroom-based features. But, you know, for language, we do like 2,000 hours of language instruction synchronously in Van Nuys every semester. And like, you want to see the gestures, right? Like you want to see that resolution. And that's where Blackboard, you know, might not work for some people. They need a little bit more clarity.
I do not use both, but I always recommend this one because it's easy to use, but most of all, it's free and it's supported by the university. I can't emphasize that enough, because if people are having problems, you can help us, right? If we have Zoom, nobody can help us. So I recommend it, but I've used both and they both work really well.
So I should say that I'm also asking this for campus. So I sit on the Teaching and Learning Technology Advisory Committee, and I will be chair next year, and we are talking about things like this. So I need to know whether these things really work the way they're supposed to, way others of us envision that it's supposed to be working or not.
I think it's really good now. I mean, it went through different phases, but right now it's a very good phase.
Yeah, and one of the things, because this is a UW system licensed product, right? Which means, and we know that we have it at least through June. After that, we don't know. The system is a bit unclear about what the future of web conferencing is at the system level. So then the question becomes for our campus, if system discontinues this license, what do we do? We are going to get WebEx through our Cisco partnership, but to David's point, Ultra is built for instruction. It has things like breakout rooms, etc., that other web conferencing platforms don't have. And so if there's these conversations going on, I want to make sure that people are addressing the full instructional uses rather than most, like Zoom and a lot of other products are much more focused on just kind of webinar and office kind of things. So the reason why I have backed Ultra over a lot of other products at Zoom, I have explored a little bit and looks pretty promising, but I haven't done a whole lot with it, is because the feature set is designed with education.
It's really easy to use. Here I just shared a whiteboard so students can type or draw or do whatever they want. It's great for collaboration.
And so they all see those at the same time?
Yes, they all type on it at the same time and they all see it at the same time. So you can pull up a whiteboard or a blank PowerPoint is what I typically do. But if you forgot to do that in the middle of your presentation, I just clicked on share blank whiteboard. There you go.
Now, this would not be a useful thing if you have 250 people
Right.
online trying to access this whiteboard.
Right.
And this is where breaking them into groups
Right.
makes more sense, because you could have 100 groups.
How do you break them into groups? All you do is you click on, I just clicked on the breakout groups. There's only me in here, so it's a pretty lonely group right now. But there's a breakout group and you can say how many are in there and how many members you want to be in there. And you can have it, I was only me, so it won't let me do anything doing that because it says you can't be a group of one. But it will let you automatically assign people, or you can drag, if there were more people here, I could drag them into the groups. Another tip, when you're doing groups, again, have one group that's in the main room, because if you're recording it and or people pop out due to internet connectivity issues, they'll pop out and they'll be in no group. So I always keep the main room as a group. So when I record the sessions, there's at least one group recorded, and if somebody pops out, they're not all alone in that area. They at least will pop back in to a group. So another tip is to make the main room a group area.
So when people ask those questions that you had down there, you have the thing, the pink thing on the bottom, purple thing. Wasn't that a question or something? Raise your hand.
Oh, yeah, raise your hand, yeah.
I'm assuming it's like ask a question or something like that.
Yeah.
Um,
And they could chat here too.
Well, I'm wondering more, so they could type in a question in,
Yeah.
something in there?
And do you see that, or does the whole class see it?
Right, there's two choices, there's everyone, so everybody would see it, or if I was
Okay.
talking to Maria, hey, I'm having some issues here, I could just talk to Maria, so you have a choice of talking to the whole group as a chat, and everybody sees that, and the cool thing, the really cool thing about the recording, my gosh, it's like live chat, the recording records the chat as you're going through the presentation, I've never seen a tool that did anything like that. That's the best feature. So when you look at the recording and you use the recording from here, you'll see live action of what took place in that webinar, and that's a really cool feature.
So the
I was just gonna say, I believe that Ultra has now made it so you can chat with anybody using the
Oh, yeah, I
participants
think
list.
individual, I think if they're awarded just me here, I could probably click on somebody and click on it, but again, I'm only in
And
this
when you're
webinar.
setting it up, you can choose as a moderator whether you want to enable private chat or whether you want to be able to peek in on any chats.
For office hours, has anyone used this for office hours?
Yeah, let's
And
talk
how does
about
it work?
office hours and informal learning now in the last 2 minutes, because that seems to be a big
Anything else you
topic.
want me to pull this down there, or I'll just leave it up and.
Yeah, thank you.
So I taught an all online course a couple summers ago where I used Ultra for office hours. I also used it to set up virtual collaboration spaces for group projects. And it worked just fine. People came about as much to these office hours as they did to face-to-face office hours. So.
Wait a second, that's not really us.
But I did, I even had some groups meet with me to talk about their group projects. And it worked fine.
And so for office hours, did you set it up like this where they could type in, or did you have the chat feature? How did you set it up?
So I usually the groups are small enough that we all just shared our audio and video. But that's the nice thing is that you have the chat so that if somebody's audio is going wonky, you have multiple ways that you can communicate with them.
So the video pops up when somebody's talking?
Yeah, so you can choose, like there's a couple different ways you can choose to view videos. Like you can choose to see everybody the same size, or you can choose to follow the speaker, I think.
Yeah, I got you.
You can choose and turn it off or on and to share your video, which I won't, but, or not.
But yeah, your video, once you turn on your video, it will always appear in a small place at the bottom left. So your video will always be small. Right.
So I've got a question about office hours. If I'm gonna have office hours and I put in my Canvas course, today I'm having office hours at 5 o'clock. Is it click on this link to join, or can I actually embed, so when they go into the Canvas course, they see me sitting there waiting for people to talk to?
Or I mean, maybe you can figure out how to do that, John.
Okay.
But I don't think there's an easy way to do that. One thing I wanted to mention, so Karen talked about you can use a guest link or students can join via, so there's pros and cons. Guest link is great because anybody who has the link can join, but they are prompted into their own name. One of the nice things about Ultra is that it syncs with the Canvas roster. So if they join from the course, it will automatically recognize who they are. And that way, not that it's a big deal, but whoever are ever worried about somebody potentially trying to impersonate somebody or trying, being less than truthful about who they are when entering a session, having them join through Canvas is a good way to make sure they don't.
Yeah, that's good.
I would say for your idea of wanting to have a live video, you could just take a screenshot and have your image be a link. But just a side idea. One thing I would encourage everyone to think about for office hours is whether or not you want to record that interaction, which is part of the settings that you choose ahead of time. I would never want to record office hours just because of the nature of some of those conversations. So that's
If it was like a
something to think
review
about.
session before an exam, you could record that.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. Just trying to think about being mindful of like the personal things that sometimes come up that you may not want to record. And also being transparent with students about what is being recorded and what is not being recorded, I think is a good idea.
And if it is being recorded, everybody in the session does get a little notification that says it's being recorded. So.
But this is a great way for group projects. So if you're not sure if the groups are doing their projects, you can have them go in and Canvas has a great group. I believe there's a link to Ultra in the groups too, right? Where they can just, I'm not sure, but you can do group sessions in there and you can have the groups record their sessions and you don't have to watch them all, but you can spot check to make sure that the groups are actually doing their work, because you would have them record it and maybe they would have a Google Doc that people would contribute to and you can see what they did. So it's wonderful for group work.
So, and that's in Canvas in the groups. If you are having your students do group work, there are a lot of advantages of that. It's easier for them to upload images, they can have their own discussions, they, I believe, can have their own Blackboard Collaborate.
What you would have to do for that is you'd have to create those sessions in the main interface, but then you would label them, group 1, group 2, or whatever, and then that's when you could drop a link to that specific group in the group space.
Okay, so it is something you have to set up ahead of time.
Yeah, you do have to do a little bit of setup. And the other thing you have to make sure is that you set up everybody joins as a moderator. Otherwise, your students will all join and nobody will be able to do anything.
Has anyone tried, as a sort of these study sessions, or review sessions, without being there yourself? Can you create a space for your students to join, and then they just go in there and they have a chat without you? And does it work?
Spying on them?
Well, you could tell them, hey, sorry, I'm out to get another glass of wine, I'm not gonna be here for this. But, or just, this is your space, you could choose to have it recorded or not recorded, I believe. So it could be this is an informal space, I will never peek in here. If I do, you'll see me.
And that's exactly what I did when I taught, is because it was online and there were group projects, I said, I'm giving you this space for you. If you want to collaborate virtually, this is a great space for that. And some groups used them and some groups didn't.
I've done that with a Google Doc that I've embedded in a page and just said, if you find any tips and tricks or resources or pages of the textbook that you find really helpful, and they just self-populate. So it's not as interactive as this, but it's a little more asynchronous.
So this reminds me, another thing that we heard about last night was when you have students generate their content and generate their connections to your course content, that also helps them succeed. And it has it was kind of fun, they took out this 10,000 and 100,000 person studies. But something as simple as, instead of telling them how this is good for you, if you have them generate it themselves, that's way better.
Okay, so it's possible this may go away after June?
It is possible. And so this has been up for 1-year renewal for the past 4 years.
Okay.
And every time, it could go up good, and every time they renew. But again, I at this point with system, I have a hard time reading the tea leaves. But if we don't have this, we will have at minimum Cisco WebEx. And then if TLT tag is going to be talking about web conferencing in the future, there may be discussions about other web conferencing technologies.
But here's the good news. A lot of the features here are fairly standard across all of the platforms. How you get to them are a little bit different, but they all have a little hand raising thing. They all have the chat, they all have the microphones. So if you learn how to do things on one system, and if your students learn how to do them on one system, they will be able to understand how to do them on other systems. So regardless of what's there, some of the fine points might be a little bit different, but overall it'll be similar. Probably.
Have there been any instances of this being used for tutoring sessions on campus?
I believe Guts looked into it.
Okay.
I don't remember if they ended up, because their big concern was having students join not as themselves. And at the time, they didn't have a course, and so they didn't have the roster sync, but I don't know if they ended up using it.
So students are already using Google Meet and Facebook chat and all of these whatever different things on their own. This is just another maybe more formal, more blessed way of providing that. In some ways, it's kind of a downside of that, right?
Yeah.
Whenever it's kind of like, here, have this material that's good for you. No, I don't want that. I'm gonna go have my own thing over here.
Teacher approved.
Right, if it's teacher approved, it's bad, right? So maybe this is best for those formal spaces. Maybe it won't work for the informal spaces because they're doing their own thing with their own tools that they're more comfortable with. John.
So people have used this in whatever format. Does the comments coming back from the students, is it better to come back as a text message, or is it better to come back as an audio? Because we had a lot of problems with audios, particularly with foreign students, and wouldn't get close enough to microphones and things like that. So I could see the text thing being a real advantage, because then everybody would see it at the same time and stuff.
And there are some instructors where they only allow themselves to have audio, and all participants only participate via chat. So
Chat means text.
Right, yeah. Okay.
And text is a lot easier to scan, right? Because it's non-linear. You don't have to listen to everything from point A to point B. You can just kind of zip through and skip around. So there's a cognitive ease to that.
Yes, oh, sorry. Mark.
Oh, I'm hearing yes, Mark.
Yes, and
Yes, and.
for me at least, cognitively, I find it quite distracting to be trying to speak and keep an eye on questions. So
Oh, right.
Um, two strategies would either be to turn off your notifications and say to students, I'll have pause points at which I'll check and respond to questions. Or to have, as Karen suggested, a partner in crime who can flag or verbally address things that seem important that are coming through the chat.
Yeah, pause points for questions is a really good idea. And we do this naturally in presentations. We say, all right, any questions? And if any questions comes up, that would be a great time. Because you're right, if you're trying to talk, but you keep being distracted, oh, so-and-so has this question, that ruins the presentation for everybody, including yourself. All right, so we have hit some of these things. Can it replace discussions?
I know some who have tried. If you're teaching all online, like with most things teaching all online, I wouldn't try to just replicate what you do in a face-to-face space. In an online space, it's a different modality. But I do know of at least one instructor where she required students in an online class to sign up for times where they met face-to-face and ultra at least once a week.
And for language learning, that makes a lot of sense, right? Because you need that practice talking and hearing and understanding. It's harder to grade again because it's a linear thing that you have to go through and see, although you could spot check as Karen suggested. I know that Morton Gernsbacher really liked the synchronous text thing because then she could very quickly scan it. She could just have them copy it, paste it into a document and give it back to her.
Synchronous text, what do you mean?
Basically
The
using that chat feature over here
Yeah.
where they do all of their typing in, and then she would just have them have somebody copy it all, paste it into a Google Doc with their, because
I
it
got
came
you,
up with the
yeah.
names on it, and
So
it was
just
easier for them to track.
turn it in for an assignment.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about awkwardness. That seems like a really good one because it's always weird, right? There's standing up in front of the class is one thing, but having that video, especially with the video, you get the double chin thing, the lighting's bad.
Well, and you always get a little delay, and so you have to work with the tool a little bit, you and the students, to get used to how the cadence, conversation cadence is, because it doesn't work just like we're doing it in this room.
Right.
So it can be very awkward because you can start.
Yeah, I used to Yeah,
They
they
have
have that
their
on the
sound
news every
on.
once in a while.
Yeah, I've heard my voice come back at me because somebody had their sound on and used their microphone, so I would talk and then a few more seconds later it would be repeated. That was the worst webinar of my life. So we have to make sure to mute students if we need to.
It's good to have a worst webinar.
Yeah, I've had one.
You don't have it behind you.
I have plenty of experience.
All right.
I find for me as a presenter in a webinar, it's often the least awkward if I can have a moderator with me in the room. And even if you can capture some of your banter, like it deals with the hesitant pauses when you're wondering if the other person's going to chime in or not. If you're just in the same room, it makes things feel a little bit more natural. And I think that's conveyed to your audience as well.
So even if they're not participating, or are you talking about doing an interview back and forth?
Even if they're not participating, if they're only, I will often want someone to moderate and just view the chat if I'm the one presenting verbally, and either being able to trade off or just having that person in the room.
But you keep saying in the room, so you're not talking about somebody else online, but you're talking about the comfort of knowing that there's somebody, at least one person in the world, who's listening right now. Or
Yeah,
Because they're next to you.
the analog room.
the analog
Yeah.
element.
But also logged in,
Okay.
but muted
Oh, in that room,
Yes.
virtual room.
in both rooms.
Okay.
Well, and the way we did our pilot was kind of like designing a television program or a radio program where everything was very scripted in terms of this chunk, then that chunk, with moderation, and then we would call out to each other, okay, now we're gonna start this breakout session. So we tried to limit the awkwardness by having it be choreographed. And I think that overall worked really well. If we had, perfect technology that had no latency and everyone just like connected, no problem, I think it would have been a very positive experience across the board for both collaboration as well as delivering didactic material. But because of the technical difficulties, it tends to skew a little bit more toward if you can use text, the things that are really fast, have no latency. Those things like kind of help the lesson move along.
So designing ahead of time as a podcast of sorts, a live podcast next week, will help with that. How about unscripted? There's a lot of awkwardness in the unscripted, right? How do we deal with that? How do we celebrate that awkwardness?
Embrace it.
What's that?
Acknowledge it and embrace it.
Embrace it.
And one tip from my training days is when you're having a technical difficulty moment, try not to just mumble about it to yourself, because then they hear it too, and you can just say, give me a moment, and it's okay if you're quiet for 2 minutes, even though that feels like forever as you figure it out. I feel like sometimes it's worse hearing just the little kind of, oh, wait, no, oh, did you see that? I hope not, and like, just kind of.
Get that technical difficulty splash screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel a lot in charge of in front of a lot of faculty, but if I talk it out, they feel, oh, I feel better that you had that problem and I know how to resolve it now in the future. So just like you said, talking it out, explaining it, and then how are you gonna fix it? How would you fix it moving forward?
That shows that you're human. I apologize, we've gone over. It's past 2:00 already. So thank you for sitting around for that last 2 minutes. And if you would please fill out a little, give us some suggestions and ideas, tell us how you like this. That would be great. And thank you all for coming. And James is over the corner.
I'm more than happy, if you have specific use cases where we want to talk to, I'm more than happy to meet with you and talk about, is this a good fit? How is it?